how do I create recurring revenue from support or advisory contracts without talking about hours? I thought that's a good Jonathan
Yeah.
question.
It needs to be presented as insurance. So you're going to want to talk about um, response time and your quality of what's it called? Quality of service? No. Continuity, business continuity, all those
Mm,
sorts of things. So they uh, what often comes up in this question is a big variable, which is whether or not you're going to be publishing fixed prices for this, or if you're going to be value pricing this on a client by client basis. So if you built something for someone and it's all your code, or you're very familiar with the code and you fixed all the scary stuff, you're very familiar with the code base for one reason or another, and you want to, and this is a big if you want to support that, then that's a big business model choice. And it's lower value than the original build or whatever you did before this. Nobody wants to pay as much to the janitors as they did to the architects. Like, you
mhm.
just don't. So, or the maintenance people. And it's just lower value. So it becomes a thin margin business, but it's got a lot of upsides, which are things like predictability, because people are pretty much never going to not need this. They're always going to need this because software isn't set it and forget it. It's always going to be organic. Things are going to change, platform updates, security, vulnerabilities, all of those things are going to change, and they're going to need someone because presumably they don't have an internal team or you wouldn't be asking this question. So you just have to decide, like, do you want to be on call? Do you have people around the world in different time zones, or is it just you? And if somebody's website goes down in the middle of the night on Black Friday, you need to get out of bed like a fireman. So,
Mhm.
um, but I lost the plot though. What's the original question?
Yeah, I want you to talk to the other side of this. Is how do I create recurring revenue from support or advisory contracts
Okay.
without talking about hours?
The advisory one is just 24/7 unlimited. Just do that because in that there are ways to insulate yourself against abuse of your time being abused, which I've talked about at length. But the advisory thing, the discussion about hours is you can contact me 24/7 over the agreed upon channel. For me, it was always Slack or email or Basecamp, depending on the era. And I'll get back to you within uh, X, whatever the response time is, with
Mhm.
an answer or at least a reply to say that I have to research it and I'll give you an ETA. So, so then you don't have to be up all night. The advisory is way easier to get the hours thing because if they're coming to you in an advisory capacity, the whole premise is that they just need to have an expert on speed dial so that they can get a quick answer to a question from someone they trust. So they're not expecting you if it's actually advisory, they're not expecting you to be sitting in every meeting or reading through every email thread or something like that. So you want to make sure that you set the expectation appropriately. So that one's easy. Just 24/7, unlimited. Ask me as many questions as you want. Um, the
I just want to
support
throw
one.
in a caveat though.
Mhm.
One person or multiple people.
Right. So there, like I said, there are just I've talked about this a lot. So since this is lightning, I don't feel like I should go into it because we're going to be here all day. But there are definitely ways that you can shoot yourself in the foot with this model. Uh, just Google for Jonathan Stark advisory retainers, and there's like 20 articles on my website that talk about it. There's probably 3 or 4 different ways that you can prevent them from overwhelming you. The support thing is much trickier because it's implementation work. So it's like, well, how much do we get? And the answer is basically as much as you need to maintain the service levels that we're promising. So you probably would have tiers of, 3 different tiers. If you were going to publish the prices, you'd probably have 3 different tiers that, where, whatever, bronze, silver, gold, whatever you call it. And the lowest one is going to have the longest response time. The middle one is going to have the middlest response time. The top one's going to have the shortest response time. You're probably going to do things like in the higher tiers, you probably do things like monthly checkups, disaster recovery testing quarterly. I'm assuming software here. So there's just different things that will decrease the likelihood and impact of any risk that they're afraid of coming true. So you got to figure out what they're afraid of happening and then say like, okay, we're going to decrease the odds of these things happening. And this is how much it's going to cost
Yeah.
for a company
Insurance.
like, yeah, it's insurance. It's
Yeah.
totally insurance.
Yeah. I like that angle. You're taking on risk
Yeah.
in return for money.
How many hours do we get? You get as many as it takes to maintain these service, the promise
Mhm.
we're making. We're
Right.
going to keep our promise. If it takes us no hours this month, great. If it takes us 100 hours this month, great.
Mhm.